Hi, I'm Dawn, and this is where Shabby meets Bling. Tonight, I'm going to be using 3 different thrifted items to create some spooktacular Halloween decor.
This is Rust-O-Ween, a Can't Sleep Creations collaboration. I would love to thank my co-hosts, Shelly from Repurpose My Way and Monica from Up All Night DIY. You're going to find the links to their channels and this fabulous playlist with a lot of other creators in my description box below. So what I'm supposed to be making is something that's either rustic, rusty, primitive, or vintage, and I chose vintage. When I took a look at this tin, to me it looked like one thing and one thing only. Oh, other than a tin, of course it's a tin. I picked it up at Goodwill for a song, and to me this little gem looked like a vintage TV. So that's what I'm making today, is a old school vintage TV. Spectre Vision. Ooh. First things first, I am going to trace my lid because I'm going to need some kind of template on what the inside is going to look like. So there is that. Next thing I'm going to do is I need to make a screen. There needs to be a screen if you're going to have a TV. Now, I picked up this little gadget, this little doodad when I was thrifting, and it was a mere 25 cents, guys. And I'm pretty sure this was like a miniature loom, so you could weave things on here. But this is going to be the frame of my screen. How perfect is that, right? Absolutely perfect. So once again, I need a template because we need to transfer the image onto the front of the tin. So I'm going to trace this and then I'm going to cut it out. So here's my template, and you can see the size is going to be so perfect for this. My knobs will go on the right hand side, and it's all about placement right now. If it's not placed properly and I cut the hole where it's not meant to be, or if it's crooked, I'm in trouble, and this whole thing is just a waste of time. So I've got it lined up. I'm going to give it a little bit of painter's tape on the back just to make sure it is exactly where I want it to be. Once again, I mess this up, game over. Once I tape it down, I trace it around the perimeter, and this is where I will be cutting. Now we need to make the glass part of our screen, and I'm using some plexi that I picked up for 99 cents at Hobby Lobby, and it's nice and thin, but it's thick enough. It's thick enough to act as my glass part of the screen. So what I'm doing is I've offset my loom, and I am tracing the outside of it so that it's a little bit smaller than the outside because it needs to fit inside the loom. And now I use my shears to cut out my plexi. Now for making that hole, I used my Dremel tool to get me a start, and now I'm using tin snips to make my hole bigger and to follow that line. I took my time because it's very sharp as well, and I'm just using my tin snips to cut all the way around the area I designated as the hole for my screen. After I finished cutting, I made sure that there was no little slivers of metal around because safety first. And now I am going to put my loom inside the lid of the tin. And you can see it's already starting to resemble what would be the front of a television screen. And I end up having to manhandle this little guy in here because I cut it nice and tight. And that's what we wanted. We wanted a nice tight fit. So I get my screen in place, and then I'm going to glue it. I'm using 3-in-1 glue to glue the back side, so you don't ever see it, of my little loom into place. To cover any gaps or any cut marks left by my tin snips, I am using some dimensional paint to run a bead around the exterior of my little screen. I just wipe it clean, almost like caulk, and this stuff, because it's so thin, is going to dry super quick. So I run a bead around the entire perimeter of my screen, and we'll sit and let it dry. Once it's dry, I am going to spray paint my little TV black. I did give it just a light coat of black spray paint to give it a more of a uniform look. And now I'm going to build up the inside of my TV. I'm creating a space where you're actually going to be able to view what's on TV. Spectre Vision. I am using just some old scraps of cardboard, and I'm building up the right side much higher than the left side because I'm going to use that original piece of cardboard I cut from my lid to create kind of a reverse fisheye look, so that I'm going to be able to show you more on the inside than I would if the inside surface that you're viewing was flat. If that makes sense? That makes sense. You'll see what I mean in a little bit, but I'm just using my cardboard and I'm going to glue all the components inside. See what I mean? That's the area you're going to be able to view, that curved area. Now, time to really paint this thing. This is a Waverly chalk paint. It is hazelnut, and I am giving it a thorough base coat of hazelnut. And you can see there's a little hole right in the tippy top of my TV. That's for those rabbit ears. Hey, old school TVs had rabbit ears. And I also drilled 4 holes in the bottom to allow for my feet, my legs of my TV, because old school TVs had legs. Yes, they did. So I'm giving this a thorough coat, and actually I think two coats will suffice of this beautiful hazelnut chalk paint. Now I am using a very, very skinny brush to create wood grain all around the perimeter of my TV, because I really want it to look like an old TV. So I'm just taking my time and I am creating wood grain. After my wood grain is dry, I'm going to use the exact same paint, which is a truffle chalk paint by Waverly, and I am going to give it a wash, the entire thing. Here you can see there's 4 little things sticking out of the bottom of my TV. These are actually thumbtacks. Where I drilled my holes, I glued thumbtacks in, and they're going to hold my legs. But right now, I am giving my entire television, the exterior of it, a coat of matte, a mode epoge. So a little podgy, and we're going to give her a slight sheen, but nothing to write home about. All old school TVs had dials, one for volume and one for channels. So I am going to be using 2 wood knobs, just drawer pulls, old ones that I've had forever and a day. I have a bucket of these things, different sizes, different shapes. Of course I do. I am taking 2 of them and I'm cutting them down because they extend out way too far for the depth of my television. So here they are, and you can see the front of my TV is already painted black. And I've already drilled 2 pilot holes, but I need them to be bigger because I'm actually going to use the screws that came with the knobs and the rest of the knob. I am going to be using these very inexpensive shaker pegs, and I'm going to be cutting them down to create turned taper style slant wood legs, retro style. This will be cut to create the tapered part, and up here will be cut to create the angle of my little tapered legs. Here's what they look like. I think they're very convincing to be cute little retro legs. I am drilling a hole in the bottom of them, and remember those thumbtacks? That's what's going to go inside here, and I'll just use 3-in-1 glue to attach them. Back to my sawed off little knobs, my nabs. I am giving them just a real light sanding so it'll take my paint. But first let me show you how this is going to work. Do you see I have the 2 parts of the little knob and my screw? Where the gap is where the tin, the front of my TV is going to be. And I'm going to glue each of the components onto the screw itself so that way the front of the TV, the little knobs will actually turn. They'll be able to turn. And now we're going to paint them. I am starting out with a Waverly chalk paint. It is called Silver Lining. It is a really, really, really pretty light gray. I am following that silver lining with a plaid metallic folk art paint, which is called Silver Anniversary. So happy anniversary. We're painting these things metallic. I don't know whose anniversary. Time for some paint for my little tapered legs. These guys are getting painted that truffle, so it all blends beautifully. The very end of it, where it tapers down to the smallest point, will be painted in a stripe of that silver anniversary metallic. Because if you think about it, all those little tapered legs that are all retro, they all have a metal band at the bottom. I am also painting the frame of my little screen in the silver lining. That's going to be its first coat, and then I will come back with the metallic as well. And I will also treat either side of the frame of the front of the TV the same as I did the rest of the TV. I will be giving it that faux wood treatment as well. Faux bois. So fancy. Faux wood. Yeah, and this angle was tough. I wish I had painted it prior to going in there, but it would have gotten scraped up really bad. So it is what it is, and it's getting its first coat of silver lining. I drew out and cut out a little template of what my little speaker is going to be. And I am now placing my knobs where I have drilled my holes, and I'm kind of seeing where I want to place my speaker. I'm also going to be doing like a little partial speaker above the knobs too, because of the placement that I chose. So I'm just tracing this out just to see how it looks, because I can always paint over it at this point. But what I am going to make the speakers out of is something other than paint. I jumped onto Canva and I pulled up some images of fabric. This fabric in particular is what I'm going to use. And I'm taking my little template and I'm going to cut out the size I need for the bottom. And then I am going to flip it over and I am going to cut out a smaller version upside down of this very same template for the top. After my wood grain is complete, I will Mod Podge these into place. I have a styrofoam ball, and I think it's like a 3-inch styrofoam ball. I did not measure it, and it's not in its wrapper, so I don't know. So I am going to make some little tiny marks around the part where it's actually pressed together, molded together. There's a line, there's a distinct line, and I just need to be able to see it a little more clearly. So I am marking the exact center of the styrofoam ball, and I'm going to cut it in half, because it is going to become the base of our rabbit ears for our vintage TV. So once I get my line marked, I slowly rotate my knife around the perimeter and I cut this little bad boy in half. Once I cut it in half, I realized I wanted it a little bit smaller. So I'm just taking my little knife I use to sculpt with and my shears as a guide. Placed my knife on top of my shears and rotated it around until I got my little perforated cut. Now I come in with my super sharp knife, super sharp, and I cut it in half again. Here we have the little tippity top, and that's what I'm going to be using, is just the little tippity top. I'm going to take it and I am going to hot glue a little pick onto it for the time being, which will act as a handle as I do what I need to do to this little thing. First thing I'm going to do is take some lightweight spackling and I'm going to coat it just to get rid of some of the little indentations. I don't like seeing all the little pits in my styrofoam. So I'm going to coat it with spackling, and then I'm going to give it a little bit of a sanding, and then I'm going to paint it that silver lining, and then come back with my silver anniversary. So all my metal components will coordinate with each other. I searched high and low for some old antenna, and short of ripping them off a vintage car, I could not find anything. So I picked up resale at a thrift shop these knitting needles for $1/4 each. I'm going to use my Dremel tool and cut them down, and once in place, I think they'll look just like little rabbit ears. Now we have to work on what is actually seen in our little TV, and I am starting with the backdrop I am using 2 of my foam brick veneer panels. These are available on Etsy. I will leave the link in the description box for you. I attach them together at the seam by using just a real thin piece of paper on the back side at the seam, and I glue them together. And they lay down nice and flat. You just hold it in place until they're dry. Now I am giving it a first coat with plaster chalk paint from Waverly. I wanted to create a top for my brick wall, kind of like a concrete top, you know how you see them, a ledge, so to speak. Because I'll be sitting some things on that ledge for fun. Yes, I will. I simply cut out some strips of scrap styrofoam and joined them together with some hot glue and a half of a toothpick. And now I'm painting it this silver lining chalk paint. And I don't care if there's little holes in it. I mean, that's kind of the cool part about it, is because old concrete has like pits and holes and whatnot in it, and it's going to match my weathered brick wall above. So the 2 components will go together very well. Back to my brick wall, I am using crimson paint and that truffle that I've been using to combo a color that's not so bright as this crimson red, because my brick is old, it's worn, and it needs to look old and worn, and it's going to be at night time. So I'm mixing just a tiny bit of that truffle in with my crimson red to give me a deeper red brick color. I'm still not sure if I want mortar to show or if I want it to be entirely red. That's why I painted it that plaster the first time around, to give it that base coat in case I want my mortar to show. So we'll see how I feel as I go. I will cut and paint some scrap foam and use moss for the base of my scene. I picked these up yesterday at a garage sale. I think it was the best garage sale I ever went to. It was fabulous. You'll see lots of stuff coming soon from that garage sale. But I'm going to take these little clips. They go on lights to hang, like party lights, Halloween lights. And I am going to make little jack-o'-lanterns for on my ledge. I am very gently squeezing him with my clamp, not too tight because I don't want him to crack. And I'm using my coping saw to cut the tippity top off of each of the jack-o'-lanterns I am going to be using. I am going to be drilling holes in the back of a couple of them because I'm going to put lights in them. Yeah, you can't have a jack-o'-lantern without a light. So I'm going to be doing that, as well as one of the smaller ones. I'll be drilling holes in either side, adding some wire, because there's going to be someone that is going to be carrying a little Halloween trick-or-treat bucket. It's nighttime. There's a brick wall. We need a big old full moon. So I'm going to use one of these 2. I'm not sure which size I'm going to use yet, but one of them. But I'm going to cut them out, and then I am going to trace them onto some of my plexiglass. So that way I've got a back for my moon. I'm going to Mod Podge it into place, and we're going to put some lights behind this little guy inside our TV. One final missing item, which I have to make right now, are some ghosts, some specters, some spooks, some cute little ghosty goblins. I am using a Mod Podge, and a silicone mat. And I am laying out a few circles. Not quite circles. I'm not being super careful. I am trying to get it as uniform in thickness throughout the little circle as possible. And I'm going to lay out a few of them. This is what we look like approximately 12 hours later. I did these right before I went to bed, or shortly before I went to bed, and then I left them to dry overnight. And you can see how it's still a little bit white in the middle. It's not quite dry. So your best bet is to let them dry as long as possible. You need them to be pliable, so they can't be super dry, but they cannot be wet still, or they will rip. Even though I should have waited a little bit longer, I didn't. I am going to go ahead and work with this anyway. I have a light bulb. It is a long, slender Edison style light bulb, Doesn't matter what it is, it's the shape that counts. I needed something to form its head, the little head of my little ghost. That's what I'm doing. I am sculpting a little ghost around this light bulb. I'm going to do 2 others and we'll see how they come out. The one that looks like a frog, you can see on the mat still, it looks like a frog. I'm going to leave that for a while. Whether or not I get to it or not, I don't know. But I'm just taking my time and I am forming a little ghost body out of this sheet of Mod Podge. I am using my ball sculpting tool to work on my tiny ghost. Once complete, I am taping them with some painter's tape in place so they stay the way I want them. Not too tight though, not too tight. You can choose to leave them clear, or if you wish, you can paint them. I am painting my little guy as well as my big guy with plaster chalk paint. Then with black chalk paint, I'm going to paint on some cute little ghostly facial features.
I've worked so hard this week, it's time for me to kick back with a hot cup of cider and watch some TV. I hear there's something pretty cool on SpectraVision. Let's check it out.
From 3 very simple thrifted items, I created a vintage television. Here you can see the wood grain on one side of our TV, little faux bois. Let's take a look at our antenna. They have gone from knitting needles to rabbit ears. And how about those legs? Very vintage in style, and to think they were shaker pegs to begin with. And you can see that little metallic stripe I painted at the bottom. And here she is. Here's the SpectraVision, the vintage TV. And there's our sweet little ghost inside, our Mod Podge ghost. Let's take a closer look at Madge. Mod Podge Madge. You can see she actually has folds in her quote-unquote sheet, and she's carrying one of those cute little jack-o'-lantern clips that I got at that fabulous garage sale, which is now her trick-or-treat bucket. And there's 2 more on the ledge, all lit up, as is our moon from that little Canva image. I also added some of my picks, my woody stemmy bendable picks, and some moss to round out my beautiful little scene in my SpectraVision. Oh yeah, and remember, you can turn up the volume or turn it down, but you can't change channels. Thanks again to Shelly from Repurpose My Way and Monica from Up All Night DIY for joining me in this Rust-O-Ween Can't Sleep Creations collaboration. You're going to find the links to their channel and this playlist in my description box below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like, share it with your family, your friends, anyone that likes DIYs, decor, or Halloween. You can follow me on Instagram, and don't forget to check out my shop on Etsy. Leave me a comment. I would absolutely love to hear from you. Ring that bell for notifications of all my upcoming videos. Subscribe. It's a great way to support my channel. But for now, this is Dawn with Shabby Meets Bling. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.